Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Agyant Mirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militamina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishnam Stapitamina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadama Hyam Dadati Swapadantikam Janmandyasa Yaton Vayadi Taratash Tarate Shrabi Gyaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yasurya Tejo Vari Mridam Yatavini Mayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Swena Sada Narasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi. Sorry, not very musical this morning. A little tired. We're in the last passage of chapter 2. Ajamil goes back home, back to Godhead. In the last passage we covered yesterday, Ajamil was expressing his repentance. Having repented, or as I was mentioning yesterday, having given his submission to the Supreme Lord Vignapti, he expresses his astonishment on the mercy he received. And then after that, he expresses a vow, a determination to become Krishna conscious. And he's following through on that determination. So he leaves his family immediately and goes to Haridwar to perform bhajan. So the last passage, verses 40 through 49, is what he did at Haridwar, his bhajan, his sadhana bhajan at Haridwar. That is what is described in the last passage here, verse 40 to 49. So it's a very simple passage. We'll go through it quickly. So it says here, in Haridwar, Ajamila took shelter at a Vishnu temple where he executed the process of bhakti yoga. So satasmen deva sarana asino yogam astitaha. So at Haridwar, he became situated in a deva sarana, a Vishnu temple, and he yoga astita. He performed bhakti yoga. Yogam here means bhakti yoga according to our commentators. It's just interesting to note here in contrast in the first canto, Narada Muni, he also goes to do sadhana bhajan, but he goes to a forest. A forest is very peaceful, right? Especially a lot of our temples, at least in ISKCON, they're very noisy and not very inspiring for doing bhajan. Sometimes we think like that. So we think, oh, how nice. I will go to the forest to do bhajan. What is this temple? Why am I doing bhajan in the temple? So noisy. So many pilgrims are coming every day to see the Lord. So better I go to the forest where it's quiet. So Narada Muni also was doing sadhana bhajan in the forest. So he got the darshan of the Supreme Lord in the Akashvani in the form of the sky voice, right? The Lord spoke to him. First, he got darshan of the Lord inside his meditation. Then the Lord disappeared. He was devastated. He again started to apply same techniques, thinking that maybe by same techniques, God will again appear. But God is not obliged to our techniques. So God doesn't appear again. He only comes as sky voice. And he says that you are not fully purified. Of course, he had Bhav Bhakti. He had Sadhya Bhakti, but there was still some contamination there. Either that is spoken just to augment Narada Muni's humility, or it's taken as, at least it's taken as instructive for sadhakas. The contamination mentioned there by our acharyas in the first canto was that he was thinking, I'll do sadhana bhajan in the forest instead of a Vishnu temple. So to do bhajan in the forest is sattva guna. So that is also a contamination. Whereas to serve in the temple is transcendental. So this is the difference. So anyways, it's just an interesting contrast here. Ajamil goes to a temple to do his bhajan, not to a forest. So that was considered a defect in Narada Muni's story in the first canto. Okay, so he's at the temple doing his bhajan, then what? He controlled his senses and fully applied his mind in the service of the Lord. So Pratyahritindriya gramo yuyoja mana atmani. So pratyahita indriya grama. So all his senses, he withdrew them from their external objects. So this is an important part of bhakti practice. We don't usually emphasize it so much. It's not exactly part of bhakti. It's part of Sharanagati. So if you know in the Upadeshamrita, the instructions, first three instructions represent Sharanagati. And then the next three instructions represent Sadhu Sangha, because Sharanagati and Sadhu Sangha is considered the doorway to bhakti. And then verse 7 is Vaidhi Bhakti, verse 8 is Raganuga Bhakti, and then verse 9, 10, 11 is out of the park, transcendental life. So verse 7 and 8 of Upadeshamrita is bhakti proper, you can say. But before that, there's the doorway. So the doorway is Sadhu Sangha and then also Sharanagati. So the first verse of Sharanagati mentioned there is Vacho Vegam Manasakroda Vegam, Jihva Vegam Undurapasta Vegam, right? Eta Vegam Yovisha Heta Dera. One should be controlling the senses, basically. Body, mind, and speech. Vacho Vegam is the urge to speak nonsense. And then there's Manasa Vegam, the urges of the mind, which has two divisions. I forget how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta speaks of it. Two division means on one side, the mind is just unrestricted sense gratification. And on the other side, some other problem. Anyway, this is called Manasa Vegam. And then the Vegam of the body, Jihva Udara Pasta Vegam, Jihva Udara Upasta Vegam. So the bodily Vegas are the tongue, belly, and genitals. So these are supposed to be controlled by the devotee also. So we don't always talk about this point because it's not bhakti proper, but it's part of Sharanagati. Sharanagati means fundamentally accepting what is favorable. So controlling the senses, believe it or not, is favorable to the Bhakti Yoga. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he quotes one nice verse there from Prahlad, response to his father. Matirna Krishna Paratasvato Vamito Abhipadyeta Grihavritana. Adanta Gobe Vishatanta Mishra Puna Punascharvita Charvanana. His father asked how you become Krishna conscious. He said, don't worry, you will not become Krishna conscious. Neither by your own endeavors or by these fellows, Shandana Marka, these brahmanas, they also not help you. Neither of you put your minds together will anyone become Krishna conscious, because you are adantago. Adantago means unbridled senses, untamed senses. So because of that, Vishatam to Mishram, you'll go into hell. Don't worry about Yamaraj coming. No need for Yamaraj also. You'll go to hell in this earth planet itself. Voluntarily. Voluntarily, just like here in New York. Just yesterday, I was walking after class. I went for a walk, and outside there was this older gentleman. He must have been like, I don't know, 45, 50. And he was just like, like hovering in the ether, like he was about to pass out from like exhaustion. But many people here who, I forget what particular drug this is, probably crack or something of the sort. And it creates this thing where they're like zombies. So they're not asleep, but they're not fully awake. So they're just like hovering in the ether, can barely walk. And I was just saying, I was like, so this is hell. Why you need to see Yamaraj also? This is hell only. Krishna himself says to Uddhava that he says, anywhere where there's predominance of Satoguna is Swarga. And anywhere where there's predominance of Tamaguna is hell. So Adanta go bear Vishatam to Mishram. Because of the unbridled senses, you'll go to hell actually. Puna punas chavarta chavarnana. I'm chewing that which has already been chewed. Famous verse. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is quoting this verse saying that sense control is part of the devotee's life. So yeah. It's favorable to our bhakti to try to control our senses. It is considered as aspect of Sharanagati. Pratyahritindriya gramo yuyoja mana atmani. After getting the senses under control, yuyoja mana atmani. So he fixed the mind on the indwelling self. the Supreme Lord. So that is the other work of a devotee. Now that you've gotten the apparatus under control so it doesn't keep running outside. So now you fix the mind on God. That is the most confidential instruction of Bhagavad Gita. Mamana bhava ma bhakto mam yaji mam namaskuru. You fix your mind on God. So that is the essence of bhakti, actually. The essence of bhakti, Vaidhi bhakti or Raganuga bhakti, either type. The essence of it is to always remember Krishna, isn't it? And never forget him. And Vaidhi bhakti, we heard, always remember Krishna, never forget him. All the rules and regulations are servants of these principles. That was for Vaidhi bhakti. And for Raganuga bhakti, the first principle that we hear for the practice of the Raganuga bhakti is Krishna smarana, remembering Krishna, along with his dear associates whose bhava we are pursuing. So yeah, yuyoja mana atmani. This is bhakti proper. Get the apparatus under control so you can, otherwise you'll not be able to throw the mind on Krishna. I'm sure we have this experience, maybe on the daily. So you get the apparatus under control and then you put the mind on God. This is bhakti. So that's what he did. That's his bhajan. Simple. Next verse. Tato gunebhya atmana viyujatma samadhina. So Ajamil fully engaged in devotional service. Thus, he detached his mind from the process of sense gratification. So tata means thereafter, gunebhya atmanam viyujya. He detached his mind from the gunas. The gunas means what means the gunas? It means the products of the gunas. So that's the body, that's the senses, those are the objects we're attached to. So the mind, gunebhya atmana viyujya, he detached his mind from all that through his sadhana bhajan. Atma samadhina, and he fully enters into the samadhi. He's really meditating on God. Yuyuje bhagavat dhamni, engaging that mind and bhagavat dhamni on the Supreme Lord. The form of the Lord. The word dhamma means form. I mean, it means many things. We know the word dhamma as the sacred place where Krishna performs pastimes. The word dhamma also means form. So Bhagavat Dhamni, the form of God. He is meditating on the form of God. So Prabhupada takes the opportunity to speak about deity worship in his commentary. That is usually an important practice for sadhakas. Deity worship or Shalagram Shila worship, or if one is fortunate enough, Giriraj Shila worship, is very important part of sadhana bhajan for bhaktas. I'm reading a book on Giriraj, and they're discussing the distinction between worship of Giriraj as the big mountain and worship of Giriraj as a small stone that you keep in your home, in a home shrine. So there's distinction. And one distinction that's there, Chaitanya Charitamrita was quoted. It was mentioned that when Mahaprabhu saw Giriraj, the great mountain Giriraj, then he offered his obeisances. But when he had a small stone, which he worshipped before he gifted it to Raghunath Das Goswami, he went into ecstasy. There's a distinction. From big Giriraj, he offered obeisances, but from his small stone where intimate seva can be performed, you can touch the shila, you massage with oil, you will bathe with milk product. Usually that's how they worship. They just massage with scented oil, then they will bathe with milk. This is the standard practice of worship of Giriraj. They just bathe with milk. And then you offer so many things to the Lord, and then you, in one part of the book, they were describing how one lady, she would have conversation with her Giriraj. A little awkward when Big Mountain is there, but in your home shrine, have conversation. As I've mentioned many times in this class, from Srila Radha Govinda Maharaj, he says bhakti means that when you come home from work, you make some tea and you offer it to your Thakurji, and then you tell him how the day went. I love that so much. It just sounds so personal. Giriraj, this is what happened today. So in the book, also describing how she would give report of her day. And she had her brother died at one point, they were telling, and she talked to her Giriraj and it was able to be solaced by that. So this is a difference. Anyway, so Yuyuje Bhagavat Dhamni. So one is engaged in the form of the Lord. This is an important part of Sadhana Bhajan. At one point, we may all be so fortunate, at least if we're not living in temple. If you live in temple, then the deities are there. That is okay. And when you live at home, at some point, deity worship is, Prabhupada in his books at least, he speaks a lot about deity worship for householders. A very important practice for householders specifically. Just the opportunity to touch the Lord and to feed him, and it transforms your whole life actually in a lot of ways if you do it properly, because then you have to buy boga. Everything basically becomes centered around the deity. And just as soon as the deity manifests, so practically I will have to buy this for the deity. Oh, it's getting a little cold, I have to buy some warm clothes. In this way, you become Krishna conscious very easily. So this Bhagavat Damni Brahmani Anubhavatmani. Brahmani means the Lord who is the supreme Brahman. So he's not just some material form. And Anubhava Atmani. He is the goal of the realization. Anubhava Atmani. So anyway, this is Ajamil's bhajan. He detached his mind from the process of sense gratification and became fully absorbed in thinking of the form of the Lord. Right. Okay. Next verse. When his intelligence and mind were fixed upon the form of the Lord, the Brahmana Ajamil once again saw before him 4 celestial persons. So Yarhi Uparatadhis Tasman. So at that time, at the time of being, fixed like this, Uparatadi, his mind fixed in meditation as it was, then Adrakshit Purusham Pura, those persons he had saw before, the Vishnu Dutas who had rescued him, again, they appeared before him. He could understand that they were those who had seen previously, and thus he offered them his obeisances by bowing down before them. Right, Vavande Shirasadija. Okay. Hitwa Kalevaram Tirte Gangayam Darshanam Anu. Upon seeing the Vishnu Dutas at Haridwar, Gangayam Darshanam Anu. So after seeing the Vishnu Dutas at Haridwar, Gangayam on the bank of the Ganges in Haridwar, Ajamil gave up his material body, Hitwa Kalevaram Tirte, at that holy place on the bank of the Ganges. He regained his original spiritual body, Satya Swarupam Jagrihe, which was a body appropriate for an associate of the Lord, Bhagavat Parshavartina. So he gave up his body, saying the Vishnu Dutas, and at once he attained the Swarupa, fit for associating with the Supreme Lord. This is similar to Narada Muni when he gives up his body in 6th chapter of 1st canto. It says that he gave up the body, the material body, and received the spiritual body. And it was like I forget the analogy is used, like lightning. Like that's how fast the transition was like lightning. So it wasn't like this you can imagine like if you were watching a movie, like some dramatic process, the body is like shedding off and then he like steps into the spiritual body or something. But like lightning, the material body was given up and the spiritual body given. So Sadhya Swarupe Chakrihe Bhagava Parshavarchinam. He attains a Swarup, fit for associating with the Supreme Lord. So a Swarup means of the internal energy. This is the benefit of, not the benefit, the result of Bhakti Sadhana. Okay, next verse. Accompanied by the ordered carriers of Lord Vishnu, Ajamila boarded an airplane made of gold. Passing through the airways, he went directly to the abode of Lord Vishnu, the husband of the goddess of fortune. So yay, that's the point here. He went back home, back to Godhead. He went to the spiritual world. So it was a success story. So now from 45 to the end of the chapter, Shukadeva Goswami giving summary of everything that we've learned from this past time. Evam sa viplavita sarva dharma dasyapati patito garhya karmana. So Ajamil was a Brahmana who, because of bad association, had given up all Brahminical culture and religious principles. So viplavita sarva dharma. He, Ajamil, viplavita sarva dharma. He had given up all religious principles. And religious principles here means the principles based on the gunas of Prakriti, right? Trigunya Vishaya Veda, those principles of Dharma. He gave them all up. Dasyapati, he became the husband of Dasya, maidservant. And Patita, he became fallen. Garhya Kamarna, doing all sorts of abominable activities, right? Becoming most fallen, he stole, drank, and performed other abominable acts. So this is this line here, Patita Garhya Kamarna. He even kept the prostitute. I guess Prabhupada really wants to drive that home. Thus, he was destined to be carried away to hell, Nipatyamano Niraye, by the order carriers of Yamaraj, but he was immediately rescued simply by a glimpse of the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Hatavrata means he broke all sorts of vows. He was destined for hell. But Sadhyo Vimukta Bhagavan Namagrina, but from chanting the holy name of the Lord, at once he was liberated or freed. Okay, next verse. So that we already know, we heard the story. This is a summary. Therefore, one who desires freedom from material bondage. So Mumukshata means the people who desire moksha. They want, because remember the whole impetus for this story is Parikshit asking how one can be saved from going to hell. So you desire moksha, freedom from the karmic reactions of this world. Of course, beyond that also moksha. Karma nirbhanda kritanam. And you want to completely cut off karma nirbhanda, the bondage of karma. Then ataparam, there's no better way to do that. Tirta padha anukirtana. Then anukirtan, tirtabhada, continuous kirtan of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. This is the best way if you want that result. Why you say like that? Nayapuna karmasu sajate mano. So this is an interesting line. Because then your mind will not again become attached to the path of karma. If you do this anukirtana, let me see here. One cannot derive the proper benefit from other methods. This is Prabhupada's translation of this na'ataparam. You will not find any better method, such as pious atonement, speculative knowledge, and meditation and mystic yoga, because even after following such methods, one takes the fruit of activities again, unable to control his mind, which is contaminated by the base qualities of nature, namely passion and ignorance. Okay, so here it says, Nayapuna karmasu sajatemana. The mind will not again become attached to the path of karma if you do anukirtan. So that means by anukirtan, your avidya is destroyed. That's the idea. We've heard it many times in this story. If you do anukirtan, your papa bija, avidya is destroyed. So then you will not again run after the path of karma, which is due to avidya. So rajastamobhyam kalilam tuto anyata. But by other means, anyata, if you do other means, then you become contaminated by rajas and tamas again. So that is, anyway, simple enough. Path of karma again, yoga is not beyond the gunas of nature. So they can take you to Sataguna. You can be a Sataguna for some time. It's okay. But because it's still within the realm of Maya, so again, the other gunas assert themselves again. One continues in, material nature. So this is the difference between transcendental Bhagavad Dharma and regular Dharma. So regular Dharma just shuffles you around the material energy. Whereas Bhagavad Dharma, you can break the will. You can break the cycle. So this we've heard many times throughout this course. Because it's very, this is a Palasruti. the fruit of hearing the story or speaking the story to others. Because this very confidential historical narration has the potency to vanquish all sinful reactions. One who hears or describes it with faith and devotion is no longer doomed to hellish life, regardless of his having a material body and regardless of how sinful he may have been. Indeed, the Yamadutas who carry out the orders of Yamaraj do not approach him even to see him. After giving up his body, he returns home back to Godhead, where he is very respectfully received and worshipped. Yay, what an amazing Shruti Pala from this particular story. And the final verse here, a summary. Kaimutya Nyaya is being used here, the a fortiori principle. If this, then what to speak of? That is called the a fortiori principle or Kaimutya Nyaya. I think I'm saying that right. I could be saying it wrong. I'm probably pronouncing it slightly. But it's a fortiori. I think that's how it's pronounced. Anyway, you can look it up. Mayamano harer nama grena putro pacharitam ajamilopi agadhama. Kim uta stradayagrinan. So while suffering at the time of death, Ajamil chanted the holy name of the Lord. And although the chanting was directed toward his son, he nevertheless returned home back to Godhead. Therefore, if one faithfully and inoffensively chants the holy name of the Lord, where is the doubt that he will return to Godhead? Right. So Harinama Grinan. This Ajamil chanted the name of the Lord, Putra Upacharitam, to indicate his son. What to speak if you chanted the name of the Lord to indicate God? That is the first Kaimutya Nyaya principle being used here. Ajamil chanted to indicate his son. What to speak of chanting to indicate God? Mreyamana, he chanted at the time of death. What to speak of if you were chanting throughout life? That is the second Kaimutya Nyaya. And then the third one is kind of implicit, but is there in the commentary. He was a sinful person. What to speak of if you are a devotee of God or a pious person? That is the third Kaimutya Nyaya. And the last one is this one, Ajamilo api agadhama. So Ajamilo, he went to the Dhamma, spiritual world. So Kem uta sradayagrinam. So what to speak of chanting with faith, right? So this is the fourth one. He chanted without the faith. He didn't have any specific faith in the holy name. So what to speak of chanting with faith? That is the fourth Kaimutya Nyaya being used here. So four are being used here. And that's how Shukadeva Goswami closes out this pastime. So this pastime is a glorification of chanting Shuddhanam, chanting the holy name of the Lord as a devotee in full awareness of the glory of God and trying to surrender to him. This is the glorification of the holy name. Very nice story. Prabhupada, this is a little supplementary note. So the supplementary note is Prabhupada's gloss of that long commentary that we all read together from Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So he glosses it here, indicating that it's an important commentary. So it was good that we went through it together also. It's very nice. Hari Om Tat Sat, that's the story. This is such an inspiring story. Again, just bringing back to the memory that the major theme of the sixth canto is the Poshanam. Srimad Bhagavatam, Mahapurana has 10 topics, and one of the top 10 topics is Poshanam. So Poshanam means Anugraham, the mercy of the Lord towards his devotees who are struggling in the psychophysical dimension, right? All of us need this mercy. We need this Poshanam, nourishment, this Anugraha of the Lord, because we are struggling in the gunas of nature. Are you not struggling? Struggling on the daily. I'm struggling daily. I honestly, when I'm in New York, I'm just like, these people are amazing. Believe it or not, I do have that thought about New Yorkers quite a bit because I'm like, here they are in total ignorance without any spiritual knowledge to help them. And somehow they're not committing suicide. For me, it's a great feat that you can be in this much ignorance. Of course, suicide is problem probably increasing also, but I see there every day just enduring without any Krishna conscious knowledge. I'm like, you guys are incredible. You have incredible persevering tendency. Of course, that's me being a little facetious. I joke like this, but I often wonder, with so much Krishna conscious knowledge, still struggling so much. So we need the mercy of the Lord to nourish us in so many ways. Sometimes you're in a good period in your practice and you feel that nothing can stop you. And then you're not in a good period of your practice. And you really realize that I need the anugrah of the Lord. So these stories, like Ajamil's story is the first memorable encounter. We'll get a little bit of Indra, and then Vitrasura's story, Chittiketu's story. All these devotees who end up in very complex situations in the material world and how the Lord is showing kindness to them. It's so inspiring. Ajamil's story is the first that we get in this canto. It's very, very inspiring. So all glories to the Supreme. Today is Thanksgiving. I don't know. I guess traditionally in America now, this is celebrated as a time for giving special gratitude, despite it's the historical, the historical facts behind it. It's traditionally, I guess, accepted as a time for giving gratitude. So this is a good time to offer gratitude, I suppose, to be in the spirit. And I was thinking I offer my gratitude to the Supreme Lord also. So many also devotees, there are devotees in my mind also. I have gratitude for all of you, whom I'm often fond of calling my guardian angels because you engage me in Harikatha. Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, anyone who engages you in Harikatha by lending their ears to you is your guardian angel, because they force you to speak Hari Kirtan. So my gratitude to all of you for engaging me in Harikatha. You are my guardian angels. I genuinely do feel that in my heart. I say that. I know I'm a jester, but I say this without any jest. I do genuinely feel that. This class I started right when I got the boot from the ashram. So this sangha has been actually a shelter for me that whole time, and this tremendous transition period in my own life, which was quite bewildering. And when you're in a situation where all the sand is shifting around you, it's nice to have a solid rock to stand on. So that solid rock has been, part of the solid rock has been this sangha. So my gratitude to you. And my gratitude to the Supreme Lord, who is so kind a person that he feels indebted to a person who chants his holy name. This is mentioned in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and glorifying Hari's own quality of gratitude, Kritagya, one who is always remembering what others have done for him. When Draupadi chanted the names of Govinda, Damodar, Madhaveti, when she was being disrobed, Krishna felt indebted to her because of her chanting the name. And he felt, how will I repay her for that debt that I've incurred? What a personality that will feel indebted just because you said his name. And here we're hearing the glories of the name, and however feeble, we're trying to chant the name of the Lord also. So much gratitude to the Supreme Lord for giving that opportunity to us. Gratitude is a very powerful practice in devotional service. You want a good example of this in the Srimad Bhagavatam? You can go to the first canto, chapter 15, where Arjuna is giving a recount of his own gratitude for Krishna has departed. He's in depression due to separation from Krishna. Yudhishthira Maharaj was trying to find out what depression is. And then at that time, Arjuna offers his gratitudes to Krishna. So many verses in chapter 15, an amazing chapter. I actually remember that being the first chapter where I actually heard the Bhagavatam, because I was my first year joining temple, we were in first canto, and Srila Ramapada Swami was coming to Chicago often that time. And his classes was like, whew, they were austere. But I used to have this practice, because this way of speaking is very, like, let's just say, controlled and not particularly dynamic. So I had to work on not sleeping, which is the work that I did for the first half of the year. And by the time we got to chapter 15, he started sharing this chapter of Arjuna's gratitude to Krishna. And I remember that being the first classes that I was able to hear attentively. Having practiced not sleeping for 6 months, which I was really good at that, not sleeping, but nothing ever got inside my head. But then hearing those classes was the first time I remember the sound vibration entering the ear and coming to the heart and being touched. A very powerful chapter. So it's a very powerful practice in general to hold the gratitude in the heart. Most suffering in this world is taking place because we watch too much digital media and it makes us ungrateful. So we have to suffer the pain of our ingratitude. So anyway, gratitude to the holy name of Krishna, so kind, and gratitude to all of you. Okay, so we'll see if there's some statements or some comments. Oh, Xanax. Okay. Someone was helping me out. The drug that this guy was probably taking was Xanax. Mukunda has a comment.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you for taking us through this pastime. It's always wonderful to hear, and especially wonderful to hear from you. So thank you. And I was also, I just wanted to, I just wanted to comment on that statement about how Ajamal's, I guess his practice was slightly better than Naradamuni's because of the fact that he went to a temple rather than retreated away into a forest. And I just think it seems telling because also I think about how devotees that have been around for a while feel more and more jaded by the communities that they live in. And then they start to think, maybe I'll just retreat away from everything. But it seems like actually the best thing you can do is to essentially learn how to not feel jaded and learn how to serve the devotees that you live around. That just came to mind when you were mentioning that comment. So just wanted to share.
Oh, nice comment. Why we are feeling jaded, that is our problem, not anyone else's problem. We're always scapegoating our own defects onto the environment. But the environment is always favorable. That is the main teaching that we get from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, augmented by Srila Sridhar Maharaj in so many of his own sermons. The environment is always favorable to us. It is never unfavorable because behind the environment is the hand of God. That's how devotees think. So if you are jaded, if anyone is feeling jaded, that's on them. You know, just like you were saying recently to us that we get, Namras was telling us in some comment, you know, Mukunda, that so-and-so is ruffling feathers. And you said we are ruffling our own feathers. And it was such a nice little quip and good comment that we're ruffling our own feathers. If we're jaded, that is because we aren't in control of our emotional landscape and we're allowing ourselves to be that way. Just like one time, a disciple of Prabhupada, I think lady disciple, she wrote Prabhupada that she was going to leave the movement because her godbrothers were this, that, and the other, some complaint she was making, probably some sexism or something of the sort. So she complained to Prabhupada that she was going to leave the movement. So Prabhupada said, if they are treating you like this because of your gender or whatever, they are nonsense. And if you leave, you are a nonsense. And I was like, man, Prabhupada. He said, and then he goes on and said, why should you lose your opportunity because of the nonsense of some other people? And it was just like, right, if we take it soberly, that's a very good point. So yeah, there's, and then when the funny thing about this is that we get jaded and we outsource those feelings onto the environment. So we change the environment, we leave devotees, we go somewhere else where we, and then again, same problem comes up. So you gain the wisdom that the problem is not outside. That is a whole fun of this material world. I'm confident when you look at the social issues of today, and you see how many people are so impassioned by them, even devotees. I'm almost 100% sure they don't want these issues to go away. Because once these issues go away, then you're forced to face the responsibility of building yourself up, of looking at the defects within yourself and addressing them. As long as you're fighting the crusade, right? Fighting the holy war against the other that's outside of ourselves, then that always gives us a very valid excuse to neglect the defects in our own self. Because right now we're doing the more important work of dealing with the greater collective problem. So no one wants this collective problem to go away, actually. They want it to stay there, because if it goes away, then you have to deal with the burden of being a self that's not up to par. And that's a very hard thing to face, honestly. That was one of the reasons why digital media is so powerful, because it allows you not to face that self that's not up to par. So I'm almost sure that's why, yeah, I'm almost 100% positive. This is of course, this is part of the nihilistic age of Kali. It's too much of a burden to build ourselves up. So some problem there. And I'm jaded with the devotee community. That is another excuse. Okay, go to the forest then, homie. See how it goes. And then the crickets will be bothering you. And then the air will be too humid, and this thing and the other thing. Okay, we have Sis says, if we hit a rough patch in our practice, how to wait for Poshana? First of all, the rough patch in the practice could be part of the Poshana also, which is a bewildering thing to hear. You know, sometimes the way forward is backwards, the way up is down, that sort of idea. And the general answer to this sort of question is you need to, at least in my own personal experience with it, you need shelter of friends and superiors who are also friends, but of different type. And that's usually how you can weather the storm, as they say, weather the storm of a weak practice or a weak period in your practice. You need friendship. I remember once Bhakti, I must have shared this a few times here, Bhakti Vishrama Madhava Maharaj. I was asking him about Tarangarangini. We studied this together, Madhurya Kadambini. Tarangarangini means widening waves of bhakti. So I asked him one time that, hey, I'm a little bit charismatic, a little popular. People like to hear from me. They glorify me. They give me so many money, this, that, and the other thing. So I was like, how to avoid Tarangarangini? Like, so much is coming. Naturally, you ride these waves. So he was packing to leave Chicago that time. And so he just didn't say anything to me for like 5 minutes. And I was just like, I asked a question. That's what I was thinking in my head. But I was just standing there. I didn't say anything, and he wasn't saying anything. Finally, after 5 minutes, he like walks up to me and he rubs my chest. He's very eccentric and hilarious. He was like, "Oh, Jai Jagannath, you need some friends." That was the answer that he gave to me. And I very deeply appreciated that answer. And I'm often fond of saying, at least around here, people hear me say it quite a bit, that my friends constitute my love life. So another thing that I'm grateful for. That's what my personal experience with rough patches in practice. And you need just someone, as they say, to help hold space for you while you're in that space. I'm getting a lot of little comments here about you're my guardian angel, so that's all sweet of you all to say. You say it was for me to Maya for at least an hour. Right, I saved myself from being at Maya for at least an hour. I feel 2013 was the best phase of your life. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone out of Chicago and your glory would have remained in that small ashram room. Or then later you said 2017, I guess. Yeah, ultimately, Krishna was doing some work for me also. It was just hard to appreciate it at the time. Your class helps us to get up one time before the class. Hare Krishna. Thank you for all the gratitude I'm seeing here. These are gratitude statements. I really do appreciate it. Mother go. Agape says, I want to echo the guardian angel experience. This group has been my main dose of sadhu sangha with Tao Kali Guhyam Akyati Prichiti, listening to past recordings too. I feel so indebted to y'all. Thank you. Yeah. I'm looking, I have several private messages, direct private messages. They're all very, very sweet. So thank you all very much. And I guess we'll continue tomorrow. We're going to hear about the Yamadutas complaining to Yamaraj. You know, it's like, we thought you were a guy, homie. What's this nonsense? Some guy over here stopped us from arresting. So they're a little bit upset. So Yamaraj has to explain everything to them nicely. It's a very nice chapter also. So we'll stop here. Thank you all very much. Hari Om Tat Sat, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.